George Stephanopoulos went viral over the weekend for the way he ended a segment on his ABC show with J.D. Vance. It's the usual way that he does. Even if it is the Vice President of the United States, George gives himself the last word, not the guest.
You are focused on a bogus story. You're insinuating criminal wrongdoing against a guy who has done nothing wrong instead of focusing on the fact that our country is struggling because our government's shut down. Let's talk about the real issues, George. I think the American people would benefit much more from that than from you going down some weird left-wing rabbit hole where the facts clearly show that Tom Homan didn't engage in any criminal wrongdoing.
It's not a weird left-wing rabbit hole. I didn't insinuate anything. I asked you whether Tom Homan accepted $50,000, as was heard on an audio tape recorded by the FBI in September 2024, and you did not answer the question. Thank you for your time this morning.
No, George, I said that I don't.
Up next, we'll be right back.
And even if it is an adversarial interview, and even if you agree with George's perspective more than JD's, it's still incredibly annoying. You are hosting a guest for a reason, and that's for the guest to speak for himself. When you speak for the guest instead, you don't actually need the guest at all, because you can characterize his words your way just fine without him. So the guest just becomes a prop in service to your opinion, which I guess is the point. If you don't serve George's view, then cut the mic and get out of here. But there was an actual point to the question, even if George didn't like the answer. Prior to the cutoff, George had persistently asked J.D. Vance about an allegation against Tom Homan, Trump's border czar. Hey, what do you say about the story that Tom Homan took a shady sack of cash under the table?
The White House border czar Tom Homan was recorded on an FBI surveillance tape in September 2024, accepting $50,000 in cash. Did he keep that money or give it back?
And I actually had not heard of this allegation until this segment. It apparently escaped me, but it is fairly new. Why is George asking about something that supposedly happened over a year ago? Well, because the story broke in the New York Times on September 20th. Extra, read all about it. Tom Homan took a bunch of bribe money, and the Trump administration doesn't care enough to investigate it. In other words, the FBI doesn't care enough to investigate Tom Homan getting money from the FBI. The allegation, according to the Times, is that in September 2024, 2 months before Trump would win the election, 2 FBI agents posing as businessmen approached Tom Homan seeking help securing government contracts for border security. This, of course, premised on the idea that Trump would win the election and Homan would be put in a border leadership position, which he was. And these undercover FBI agents gave Homan $50,000 cash up front for his help. Yeah, okay. Well, Pics or it didn't happen is a good rule to live by, but apparently in this case, it's an audio recording or it didn't happen. Because there is an audio recording, says the New York Times reporting, and that's how we know that this is all legit. Oh, there is. Great. Well, can we hear that audio then? Well, of course not. It's buried deep at the Justice Department under strict cover-up orders from the corrupt Trump administration, which immediately dropped investigation into the matter upon taking office. Okay, well, according to whom then? This allegation is supposedly demonstrated on an audio recording, but nobody's actually heard the audio recording or even has the audio recording as far as we're aware. Who is telling you there is an audio recording? Well, the most credible people among us, of course. Anonymous sources at the FBI familiar with the case. And when have they ever been known to frame things dishonestly for political purposes? And actually, I had to reread the characterization in the Times because it's not even anonymous FBI sources necessarily. It's not even that specific. It's just people who have familiarity. How many are there? What roles are they in? Do they even have any demonstrated connection to this case at all? Nothing specific other than people who know, trust me.
No, I don't think I will.
So the sources could be anybody from the actual FBI agents who worked on this sting to some sort of distant Killer's Lyrics relationship. Somebody told me that you had a boyfriend who looked like a girlfriend that I had in February of last year, and he said, this is all legit. But let's say these sources are credible and accurate, people who worked directly on this case or something like that. The problem with the Times story is the sources don't even agree with each other. One of these generic people who know tells the Times the investigation did not gather enough evidence to constitute a crime under the law. But another says the investigation was ended prematurely before the necessary evidence could even be gathered. What more evidence would even be necessary, though? If Homan is on a recording taking money in exchange for specific acts he will take with his upcoming government power, then that's a bribe. Those are the two simple ingredients necessary for that crime. Did Homan do that on this recording? Or did he not? Because if Homan didn't actually make clear, hey, just so you know, I am accepting this money in exchange for the promise of specific government action X, well, then prosecution likely would be difficult. While the legal definition of bribery is simple, it is still a high bar to prove. The Supreme Court issued a decision last year on exactly this topic, actually. Bribes have to be explicit and specific. A payment received with the intent to influence an official act in the future. Payments in reward of a past action without any prior agreement are legally distinct. Those are gratuities, and those are not against the law. And of course, we can debate the wisdom of that standard, whether that standard potentially invites or excuses corruption. But the point is, prosecution does not and cannot happen without those specific pieces, a prior agreement to accept payment to do something specific in the future. So if Homan didn't do those things, well, then there is a perfectly plausible reason to drop the investigation, actually, even if this isn't the sort of trademark FBI entrapment that it sure appears to be. It's just not prosecutable. The other potential problem for this case is that Homan does have a perfectly plausible reason why he would accept payment in a political context legally. Of course, he was not in government at the time of this conversation, so this would have been some sort of promise for action while in a future office, and even in that office, Homan is not in position to award contracts himself, so this is all in the context of exerting influence, not signing checks directly. And exerting political influence is exactly what Tom Homan was in the business of doing at the time. He was a lobbyist and a political consultant. His consultation helped border security businesses win government contracts. He charged consulting fees, contracts were awarded. All of this is disclosed and publicly known, per the New York Times reporting. So it's not actually even very odd that Homan, in his prior capacity, would have conversations about consulting to get government contracts, considering that was his business at the time. Okay, but why would an honest, reputable business accept paper bag money under the table? That is a fair question, if the claim is actually true. My problem with this characterization is it requires me to believe the stories of the same people who wrote such classics as Russiagate, the Whitmer Fednapping plot, among other fanciful fairy tales. And they deployed this sting operation with remarkable convenience right before an election that their prior conduct would suggest they were eager to meddle in. Speaking of, why was Homan even targeted? He doesn't have a prior criminal record or past allegations of corruption that I'm aware of, so why would undercover FBI agents show up right before the election just to say, hello, fellow corrupt businessman? We're here to deliver that mysterious bag of money that you ordered. According to the reporting, the investigation was originally targeting other people. Of course, they aren't named either, like all the other ghosts, unicorns, and big feet quoted in this story, but an original target of the investigation supposedly told these FBI agents, hey, why don't you guys try giving Homan a bag of $1 million for some border security work? Wow, how convenient that somebody else just independently directed these FBI agents toward their political ends with precise political timing. Remarkable. But again, even if, as described, it's true, somebody saying, hey, if you talk to Tom Homan and buy his time, I bet he can get you government contracts. That isn't odd for a guy openly running a business based on buying his time to get government contracts. And of course, we can dislike that there are people who can help with government access and they sell their time to do it. I'm not saying it's wrong to have questions or suspicions about that, but it is a reality and there's nothing inherently illegal about it. But now that we have the full context, let's return to the original tough question, the one that George was asking, even if he was insufferable about it. Did Tom Homan take the money and or did he keep the money? If Homan did take the money, did he give it back when he realized that this was an FBI sting? Now, insofar as nobody is denying that Homan took the money, I think it's likely that he did. J.D. Vance did not deny it.
Are you saying that he did not accept the $50,000?
He did not take a bribe. Did he accept $50,000? I'm sure that in the course of Tom Homan's life, he has been paid more than $50,000 for services. The question is, did he do something illegal?
Pam Bondi did not deny it.
They found no credible evidence of any wrongdoing.
And that was not my question. My question was, what became of the $50,000 in cash that the FBI delivered, evidently in a paper bag, to Mr. Homan? Are you saying that they did not deliver $50,000 in cash to Mr. Homan?
Senator, as recently stated, the investigation of Mr. Homan was subjected to a full review.
Different question.
Tom Homan himself did not deny it.
You took $50,000 in cash in a bag from an undercover FBI agent to help them win government contracts, and I imagine you want to respond to that.
Oh, absolutely. Look, I did nothing criminal. I did nothing illegal. And it's hit piece after hit piece after hit piece.
The questions then are, one, what were the motives of the FBI in bringing this money in the first place, since they are known to lay this sort of bait as a standard practice? And two, if the investigation is now closed, why wouldn't Homan and the rest of the administration speak more freely about it? Why not just say, yes, Tom Homan took the money. Here are the circumstances. We believe this was a setup from the prior Justice Department for political reasons ahead of an election, or the case is otherwise not prosecutable for reasons A, B, and C. Why not just be more transparent? The problem is the statute of limitations on a federal bribery charge extends for 5 years. If Homan says anything about the facts of the case and a Democrat takes office in 2029, that new Justice Department still has the better part of the year to try to get him. And sure, you could pardon, but people take pardons to imply guilt. So unless you want to create legal liability, you have to shut up about it. Especially if you believe the entire thing was a political op, actually, because those same political operatives are just waiting patiently to try to get you again the next time they hold power. Now, in the criminal justice context, the standard is we must presume innocence until guilt is proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And as far as the publicly available evidence is demonstrated in this case, there's nothing but reasonable doubt here. This is a gossip story from people who won't even put their names to it or even describe their jobs to demonstrate how they know anything about it. But of course, if this is what it appears to be, yet another political op from the political op factory at the FBI, well, then it's not really about criminal guilt. It's about political guilt. It's about reputational guilt. It's about whether the allegation can and will stick. And sure, we are dealing entirely within the context of government agents in this case, and all government agents deserve scrutiny, even scorn, Tom Homan included. So when one government agent accuses another of wrongdoing, on which one should the larger share of the scrutiny fall? Well, I think the sensible answer is the one with the demonstrated record of scorn-worthy behavior beyond just the status of government agent alone. If government agent A is accused of bribery and government agent B is accused of political corruption, and we don't necessarily have conclusive evidence of either specific to this case, which one has engaged in the behavior before? Because again, Tom Homan has no prior record of corruption or even allegations of corruption, at least that I can identify. The FBI, however, has plenty of record of baiting bribery and entrapment. George Papadopoulos, the former Trump campaign advisor at the center of the Russiagate investigation, who they got on charges of lying to the FBI, not foreign corruption charges, for which he was later pardoned. In response to this story, Papadopoulos said, yeah, that is what they do. They show up with a bag of cash and they poke you with a stick until you take it. How do I know? Well, they did it to me. 10 grand. And when I took it, I gave it to my lawyers and reported it. Presumably why they couldn't get him with any foreign corruption charges. Papadopoulos implicitly claims Homan did the same thing, but of course, we don't know. That is way too many Georgeopolises for one story. It's kind of weird that it started and ended that way. But the point is, until I'm provided verifiable evidence, I am not going to believe tales from the FBI storybook. That's all this is. And it might not even be that, actually. It might be tales from the friends and family of the FBI storybook. Exactly how many degrees of separation there are in this game of telephone isn't even described. So while we all wait patiently to hear this audio that supposedly proves this accusation someday, I will speculate just as validly that it's sitting on some DC hard drive right next to the recording of the FBI HQ staff meeting when this sting operation was planned.
This one was invented by a writer. We made it up. We made this one up. It's a made-up tale. It's a total fabrication. It never happened. We got you.
And if you don't believe me, well, I assure you that people with knowledge told me, so it's legit. If you still don't find that convincing, well, fair enough, but that's kind of the point, isn't it? Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on X. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams as live on Wednesday and Sunday nights. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.